Hey everyone, Edward again, and I hate this thing. I'm not gonna lie, out of the box, this thing looks like straight up trash. But hey, I'm a nice guy, and I can recognize when something is done right. And, believe it or not, there are some things done right with this thing. The actual sculpting and silhouette of this kit is fantastic. And the level of part separation really impressed me too, especially considering this was based off of the Unicorn model kit, which came out all the way back in 2009. And sure, there are still some color inaccuracies like the missing black on the Vulcans and the missing gold accents along the legs, but it's not super bad. That being said, this thing looks like absolute crap. I mean, I took a painful amount of time to clean up the few nubs that I did, but combine the fact that this thing is 80% dark plastic and some of the most incompetent instructions in the world, I could probably consider this to be one of the most unfun Gunpla building experiences ever. And that's really saying a lot, because I built the MG Verka full armor Unicorn Gundam, and I would almost say that the instructions were more clear and understanding than building the Banshee was. Actually, I'd even say some of the high grades I built in all the way back from the 1990s were more fun and just better looking in general than the Banshee, which is crazy to me. Here's a kit from a few years earlier that I would say that's better than this thing. The high-grade Lunamaria Zaku. More articulation, more accessories, better color accuracy, and in general, a better model kit than this guy. Oh, a funner build, and easier to understand instructions. Actually, I just looked. For even less money, you could get the high-grade Exia, which I think might even have better articulation than this guy. Getting back to the review proper, and the main reason why I even decided to make a review on this thing. The psycho frame on this thing, which is one of the main reasons you would buy a Unicorn kit, one of the main appeals, is the worst thing I've ever seen on a Gunpla, and the most disappointing thing about this kit. For some unfathomable reason, the gold psycho frame is cast in the same color as the awful injection gold plastic Bandai uses. I have no clue why, and it is the most disappointing thing ever. And when compared to another Unicorn kit that does have a clear psycho frame, this thing just looks straight up cheap. Oh wait, but it gets even better. The HGUC Banshee Norn, which was released only a year or two after the Banshee we're looking at now, comes with a clear psycho frame, making this thing, I think, the only Banshee, scratch that, the only Unicorn Gundam kit to come with psycho frame like this. I mean, I can kinda see what they were going for. No, I can't. This just doesn't make any sense, and he's falling apart. Lovely. There's a disturbingly loose ball joint at the head, as well as a hinge in the neck, so we can look up that far, and down, not too bad. Yeah, down that far. I'm just gonna say right now, almost every single section of this thing that's connected via a polycap sucks. The only section that does not is these arms, which feel a little bit tight, but definitely not bad. It's a good amount of tight. The shoulders can move up and down individually, but not a ton. Combined with a bit of a hinge inside the torso, you get a really good spread all the way up for the arm. A full rotation just below the shoulder, that might get blocked just because of all this junk going on right here. You have a single jointed bend for 90 degrees, which isn't terrible. That's a little bit more than 90. Okay, now this is funny. So the way that the lower arm attaches to the upper arm is via a circular peg into a polycap. Now, this sounds okay, but I can't tell if they wanted to have a swivel or not because it's so loose. I mean, it takes just a little bit of force to pull it out, and just by moving it around, even readjusting it, it'll just end up falling out on you while you're posing it. Maybe this worked for the regular Unicorn where these armed armors weren't an issue, but on this thing, it's a huge issue. Definitely glue this if you get this kit. While we're talking about the left arm and the armed armor, there is absolutely no articulation on these claws whatsoever, and I'm having to hold them in with tack because they don't even stay into the arms. The singular hand that you have access to has a pretty decent range if these armors weren't on here. The chest has a ball joint and swivel. The swivel will rotate around, and that ball joint gets you absolutely nothing. Front skirts are on ball joints, side skirts just on pegs that'll rotate, and back skirts won't move at all. Because this was a kit based off of a 2009 kit, your legs are on ball joints, but it's not super bad. There's also one of those high-grade rotating joints in here, but I don't care enough. The legs can kick up pretty nicely, I will say. Backwards, literally not at all. But actually, you get a little bit more because these are at a bit of an angle. You get fairly okay splits, all things considered. And while we're here, this leg joint is completely fine. The way that these work is... okay, so that's how they work. There should be a polycap inside here with a little piece, but it's too tightly attached to the leg, and there's only one peg connecting this whole polycap section to here, which is awful, and these legs pull out all the time. If you want these to work even slightly well, you'll have to glue that peg in here. You get a 90-degree bend at the knee. I don't really care enough. And the feet actually have a decent amount of articulation, all things considered, especially since there's such big armor around them. I won't lie, there's some really unique ideas in the articulation of this thing. It's just too bad all those ideas don't work. As for the accessories, out of the box, what you see is pretty much what you get. You get one swappable hand, which is a choice between a closed holding fist and an open hand that isn't even color accurate. But I guarantee you didn't even notice because of the arm, which we might as well talk about. The armaments on the Banshee's arms, aptly named the Armed Armors, are exclusive to this kit and the main reason why I even bought it. In my opinion, these are the best weapons that I've ever seen on a unicorn kit, and they're pretty unique. On his right arm, he has the Armed Armor BS. I wish that was an awful joke that I made, but that's legitimately what it's called. And as you guessed, it does absolutely nothing except look really cool. And on the other hand, we have the Armed Armor VN, which again does absolutely nothing, and it's also at a really weird angle where it's not quite open, but it's also not quite closed, which is just weird to me. I don't know why they decided to do this. So yeah, the out-of-box options for this kit are quite limited. Those beam sabers you see in the back, unless you have a spare high grade around to use the beams from, there's not a chance that you can use them. But let's assume you did have some spare beam effects lying around. Surprisingly enough, the holding hand does work really well. You don't get one for this side out of the box because the whole hand is actually covered by this armed armor. So he can really only hold it right here and at a specific angle because of the armed armor section. As for one of the coolest features on any unicorn suit is the beam tonfas right here. And believe it or not, the armed armors don't get in the way. You don't get a proper rotation there, but you can easily fake one, and it holds in really well when it's either stored or deployed. And that is just such a great look that it makes me even more retroactively disappointed we didn't get any beam effects with this kit. Like I said earlier, this thing is 95% the same as the standard Unicorn Destroy mode that was released in 2009, which means, left over, you get a ton of extra parts that the instructions just don't tell you about. Now again, the instructions don't tell you anything about this stuff or how to make it, but it's simple enough and I think you could figure it out. To begin with, we're given spare wrist guards, which gives you cleaner forearms that don't have the ugly pegs attaching the armed armor to it. And you even get a couple different hand options, including a holding fist and a trigger finger for this beam magnum. You don't get any sticker for the sight, but don't ruin the magic. And that attaches in simple as, there you go. You get a movable handle too, and a peg back here that when you pull it out, it can actually store back here, right in there, except without the trigger finger. Next up then, you actually get a spare magazine for the beam magnum. It is hollow in the back, and there's no actual way to remove the beam magnum clip that's already in there. But if you come around to the back skirts, which are no longer there, whoopsies, these fall out a lot. Make sure to glue them. But this can easily peg into the back right here, and for storage options, in the back right there. Literally does nothing except look cool, and it does. Also be super careful with this trigger finger. The peg broke and now it can barely hold it. I'm gonna have to glue that in. Next up then, you get a shield with two different adapters. The first allows you to attach the shield to the side of the arm, just like so. And the second will allow you to attach it into the back of the arm, like so. Or it can attach in the backpack in the same way that the beam magnum did. It's a little bit difficult to see. There we go. Yeah, easy storage. All of these parts combined, you get a very close representation to the Ver-Ka Banshee kit, which is really cool, and it really frees up all of your posing options just that much more, since you're not limited to just what the armed armors can, or more accurately, cannot do. Simply put it, this thing has its issues holding it back. The questionable choice for the Psycho Frame and the cheap feeling of it really prevent me from sincerely liking this kit. I can't help but feel that if maybe one of my complaints was rectified, I could probably recommend it to a lot of people. But as it stands, the build was incomprehensible, a pain to clean up, the stability and articulation are not up to my standards, and the horrendous Psycho Frame really prevents me from recommending this kit. What I will say is this: if you plan on putting in the time and effort required to making it a good model kit, it will be a great model kit. Combine the solid proportions and amazing part separation for the most part, and an abundance of accessories, you could probably get this thing looking really good with a relatively smooth painting process. All that being said, there's definitely better options if you want a solid Banshee kit. Either go for the real grade or nothing at all. The real grade is the only good Banshee model kit on the market at the moment, other than the perfect grade, but unless you're willing to spend $300 retail, yeah, you're gonna have to pass. Thank you everyone so much for watching. If you own this kit, let me know what you think down in the comments. I'd love to hear a different perspective on it. My Instagram will always be linked down in the description below. I'm always more active on that, so come say hi. Again, thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next.